moving so slowly that there's no foreseeable end to this hearing. 7-6C, and then counsel, your appearance for the record.
Thank you, Your Honor. Lorien, bar number 11912, on behalf of my client who is present, and my co-counsel Erick Ferran, bar number
9554.
Thank you. You guys can sit down.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Patricia Marr, bar number 8846. I'm appearing on behalf of defendant, who is standing to my left. He's also present.
I know we're on day 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, I think Ms. testifying. So just remind me, who's next or who's up next?
I think you hit it right on the head. She was maybe finishing
Okay.
directly.
Okay, so we need her up here again? Is that what it is? Okay.
Yes,
So
Judge.
you come up here and then just raise your right hand and we'll get sworn in. You can bring your water.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action should be true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes. You can sit down. Okay, so I think you are still questioning her, right, counsel?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I believe we were discussing the outpost messages in our binder, which I don't have my binder actually in front of me. I just have Ms. Marr's binder.
You can have one of mine.
So please turn back to Exhibit 1 in our binder. I believe when we left off, we were talking about you granting his request to attend a family funeral.
Correct.
Okay, and what was your response when he asked you to attend a family funeral that would have been outside the regular schedule?
I told him that I will allow it and that her grandmother.
Okay. Did you have a similar situation previously where you had asked permission to go to a family funeral?
Yes,
Objection,
previously.
asked and answered.
Overruled.
Yes,
And what was the
the
issue from,
previous.
what was the response when you asked permission to attend the funeral?
Dad told me.
Same objection, Your Honor, we've been all.
Overruled, just go ahead.
Dad told me no for to attend my cousin's funeral in Michigan.
Hey, and sorry, if you could just remember, just maybe not use her full name. I mean, I think they
Oh, that's right. We were doing it.
delete it out anyway, but it's probably
Can I
easier.
say like minor child?
Sure, or G.
Or G, okay, I see that. Sounds good.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I want to make sure I heard your answer. You were not granted permission to attend the funeral?
I was not granted permission, yes.
Was that before in time to this request that was
That was
made?
before this request that Dad had made to me for attend her grandmother's funeral.
And was this before he filed a motion to relocate?
Yes.
What approximate date was it that he asked you permission to attend the funeral? Month and year, if you remember.
I don't remember.
Okay. Would it refresh your recollection to look at the message?
Yes.
Turn to page 191 of that exhibit.
What page?
191.
Okay, I'm on 191.
Okay, so approximately what date was it that you were asked to give permission?
It was February 24th, 2024.
Did you file a motion to reconsider soon after this date?
Yes.
What was that subject of that motion to reconsider?
It was regarding compensatory time. It was regarding withholding. It was regarding legal violations, and it was regarding the child's therapy.
So regarding the compensation time, is that also related to the withholding argument?
Yes.
Did the court find that you had in fact withheld time from you?
Yes, and the court gave me compensatory time for that.
Okay, was there any problem with the amount of time you received from the court?
Yes.
What was the issue?
The issue was, the court, didn't give me the full time, and it was 4 days instead of the 3 that they gave me
For that one incident?
for that one incident.
Okay. What did you do about that?
I had my attorney file a motion.
Okay, and has that motion been heard?
It's being heard today.
Okay, is it combined with the relocation motion?
Yes.
Do you recall reaching out to ask for cooperation on this ongoing problem with notification of doctors and medical appointments?
Yes, I can recall.
Right, specifically, do you recall soon after the conversation about the funeral, having that discussion with specifically?
I don't remember specifically what was exactly said, but I recall the conversation being had with that.
All right, if you could turn to page 194.
I'm on 194.
Okay, so specifically, do you recall talking about doctors and dentists during that time?
Yes.
And what was the issue and when did this conversation occur?
This was on March the 12th, 2024. And I was asking Dad if we could coordinate getting, Gigi back to her doctor's office to get her vaccinations that she needed and other appointments that she had. So I told him there was an appointment available on the 20th, and if we could discuss scheduling that too.
Okay, was there a controversy over which parent attends appointments?
Yes.
What was the controversy?
Well, Dad felt like since he had Gigi majority of the time during the week that he was only allowed to take her to medical appointments.
Did you bring that before the court at any time?
Yes,
And what was it this judge or was it a previous judge?
it was a different judge.
What was the decision regarding who attends what appointments at that time?
The judge ordered that the parents are to alternate appointments.
Okay, and was there an issue with alternating the appointments based on the judge's order?
Yes.
What was the issue?
At that time, we were meeting at Donna's house to conduct exchanges. And when we did go in front of the judge, the first dentist office had Saturday appointments available. I reached out to notify him that, hey, the dentist does not have Saturday appointments anymore. Can we just kind of meet at the doctor's office? You can wait in the lobby while I attend dentist appointment. And he said that he was going to file a motion to let the court decide.
Okay, why, if you know, did he not want you to make an appointment during the week?
Objection, well, I'll withdraw.
It was, from my understanding, the reason why he didn't want me to make appointments during the week was because it was his timeshare.
Okay, so even though the court said you could go to every other appointment,
He wouldn't allow me to do it because it was on his time.
all right, were you having trouble finding providers that would schedule on your time?
Correct.
Why was it such a difficulty?
Because most providers, they weren't available to see her on weekends.
Ultimately, did you have a conversation about that issue in this March timeframe?
Yes,
And did you ever resolve the issue?
we never resolved the issue.
What ultimately were you left with from regarding that issue?
He didn't respond.
Okay, and then ultimately, what was his comment about what to do next? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay, so if you turn to, let's see. Well, was that around the time that he was talking to you about relocating?
Yes, in March?
Right,
Yes.
and what was his comment about the relocation as it pertained to her appointments?
What page are you on?
March of 2024.
What page?
195. So do you remember talking about just changing doctors?
Yes.
Okay, and what do you remember about that?
I remember asking him, I think it was about the appointments being made.
And then what did he end up wanting to do when it comes to the motion to relocate?
He wanted to basically stop, not make any appointments or any medical appointments until, because he told me that it wasn't very necessary for her to attend the medical appointments and to wait until we were in front of the judge to address the relocation, because if the judge granted the relocation, I guess he was going to get her medical treatment in Texas, I'm assuming.
And what was the urgency of the medical appointment issue as it relates to vaccines?
Regarding her school issue, because she wasn't going to be able to attend school if she didn't have all of her vaccines, or we were going to have to do a religious exemption.
And has that been an issue since she's been in Texas?
Yes.
Okay, we can come back to that. I'm going to try to stay a little more in order. Was there an issue about, your daughter's insurance being canceled?
Yes.
What was the issue?
The issue was that we had received an order from a previous court that Dad was to carry the insurance and I was to cover or pay half of it. So that was the order, but then I was later notified that Dad took her off the insurance.
And what did you do as a result?
I put her on my health insurance at my job.
Okay, and was that an issue, was that a discussion that you had with,
I did. I addressed it with him that he took her off the insurance against the court order, and that I was going to have to place her on my insurance, and I sent him some screenshots of the plan.
Did he advise you that he removed her from his insurance?
He never advised me. I found out, I didn't find out from
Through your counsel?
through my counsel.
And do you recall having a conversation about your dissatisfaction with his communication in that regard?
Yes, I was very upset with how he did not share information with me, how he withheld information, and it just kind of felt like I was basically grasping at anything I could grasp to get him to give me information about any legal custody decisions or even upbringing.
Has that been a pervasive problem and pattern of behavior?
Yeah, for a long time.
When did you go to court on the temporary relocation?
If I want to say back in April, if I'm remembering the relocation hearing.
Okay, and I believe the record will reflect it was in March, the end of March.
Okay, the end of March, I apologize.
No problem. Okay. At the temporary relocation hearing, do you recall the arguments for his urgency to relocate?
Yes.
What did he say?
And expressed to this court that he had to leave before the end of the month to secure this job that he had in Texas, and if he was not able to leave by the end of the month, that the job offer was going to somehow not be available anymore, and that's why it was an emergency, because this job had, I guess, a time limit on it. So he really needed to move if he wanted this job in Texas.
All right, let's talk about the history of his representations regarding employment in Texas.
Yes.
When did you first hear that he wanted to relocate to Texas?
Maybe sometime in April.
So you went to court in March. So do you?
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
I don't recall exactly when.
Okay, was it 1 month, 2 months, 3 months before the hearing? Do you remember?
I want to say it
Jeff,
was,
I would object, asked and answered. She said she doesn't remember.
Sustained.
Do you approximately remember how far it was before the hearing?
maybe a month or two before the hearing.
She doesn't remember the exact date, Your Honor, but she remembers the time frame.
I'm not really sure how relevant it is anyway, but okay.
When you first were communicated with about his relocation, what did he represent about his job in Texas?
He represented that he was going to be able to provide a better lifestyle for in Texas, and that he has been unemployed for over 2 years, and that he was going to be making, I want to say maybe $100,000 or something of that sort, and that due to his job situation, this was going to be a better move for
Okay.
him.
Did he again state in his motion that he was going to be making a better income in Texas?
Objection, asked and
Well,
answered.
That
so
wasn't-
why are you asking what was in the motion?
Sure.
Do you think she read and memorized the motion so she knows in detail what's in the motion? Or?
I can explain, Your Honor. So originally, Mr. represented that he was going to be, in a letter, that he was going to be making $250,000. Then he said $125,000. And his most recent FTF, he's on the second or third job in Texas making $40,000.
But anyway, what does that have to do with your question about what's in the motion?
Because his representations over time are an issue, because that's the reason why he said he needed to move to Texas, because he had this great job opportunity. And now it turns out his last financial
So counsel,
form,
you're indicating your client read the motion, memorized the motion, and can tell us today what's in the motion?
she knows what he said about his income.
In the motion.
So she
So
told me
which motion are you talking about?
to relocate.
So ma'am, did you read the motion to relocate?
I read the motion.
Do you remember what it said in detail?
If I recall it saying maybe 75,000 to 100,000, but that's what he said in the motion. But I know in our text messages between us, he told me 250,000.
Okay. So is that the information you're trying to
Yes.
get out? Okay.
I,
It is what it is, so, okay.
And generally, it's to establish what her understanding and his communications to her were about his job prospects, because they are drastically different than what he had told this court and her.
well, and I would object to the offers of proof. Well, I guess, is
It's
that an
fine.
offer of proof, or is that argument for the closing argument?
No, it's
or
in
what
the
is that?
record. It's
There's
part
no
of the record.
jury, it's just myself.
It's part of the record because he filed his financial disclosure form and
Sure.
it's drastically
It is.
different.
Okay.
Okay.
And he's gonna tell us too when he testifies. I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, so back to the motion hearing when he said he had to relocate by the end of the month for this alleged job. When the month ended in March, do you know if he relocated?
He did not relocate at the ending of March, no.
Okay. Do you recall what the court order was for your contact with between when you went to the relocation hearing?
Yes, that when Dad was to relocate at the end of the month, that my calls were to start on April 1st.
What kind of calls?
Video calls.
Okay, so essentially the court granted the temporary relocation
Correct, the court granted the temporary relocation.
with the understanding that you'd be moving within a few days
Yes,
and that your video calls would start on the 1st.
yes,
Okay. Do you recall reaching out to Dad to receive your calls?
yes.
What happened? What date was that you reached out?
The 1st of April, I believe.
What was the conversation, if you recall?
The conversation was me telling Dad, hey, my video calls are to start. And Dad basically telling me, well, I haven't moved yet, so your calls aren't going to start until I move, until I relocate.
Okay, so you didn't get a call, and well, what about, did he offer to let you see your daughter since he wasn't in Texas yet?
Right, so when we came to court for the relocation, he told his court that he had to leave immediately, which I found out later that he did not leave.
My question was, did he offer you time with your daughter since he was still in Las Vegas?
No,
Did he offer you any contact by video calls?
no.
Did you ask him for video calls?
I asked him for my April 1st video call.
And his response?
He said that he has not moved yet, so therefore the calls has not started.
Did you end up getting calls after he moved?
Yes,
Do you recall how many days after that you started getting calls?
I can't recall the exact day.
Was it more than a week?
Yes,
Are you sure? Would it refresh your recollection to look at the
yes.
messages?
I would object to the leading questions again. I mean, when she gives her an answer, she
Are
doesn't
you
like.
objecting to this particular question or all the questions?
This particular one, when she doesn't get a response, then she asks her, we must need to refresh your recollection. I mean, it was pervasive throughout the first day of trial.
It's an admitted
Refresh your
document.
recollection if she wants to, but, why don't you just ask the question again?
Do you specifically remember how long after the end of March you relocated?
I want to say maybe it was a week.
Okay. Once he relocated, you start getting your calls.
Correct.
All right. When was your first visit supposed to take place after you relocated?
It was supposed to be maybe April 14th through the 26th.
And was there an issue with, well, and how were the travel arrangements to be made, if you remember?
Was to pay for the flights to get her here to Las Vegas.
Was there an issue with flight itineraries?
Yes,
What was the issue?
that he would fly her in like close to midnight, so causing me to lose my entire day.
All right, so did you have a conversation about the very first flight?
Yes,
And when did he say that he would get your daughter here on the first day you were supposed to have a visit?
close to midnight,
How close?
like 5 minutes before midnight.
Was there concerns that you had not only with missing a day, but also the time of day that she arrived?
Yes, I thought it was very inconsiderate for not only me, but for she was only 4. In that, it was under her schedule off, her sleep schedule off. And I guess didn't think it was in her best interest to be flying that late and for us to be getting home almost at 1:30 in the morning and me having to adjust her from there.
Did you get your daughter before midnight on the 14th, that first visit?
No,
When did you get her, if you remember?
if I can remember, I want to say maybe around 12:30.
Okay, and was there an issue when your visit ended in terms of the exchange again?
Yes.
What was the issue?
Well, the issue was that he showed up to the exchange intoxicated.
Was that the same exchange that the officer testified about?
Correct.
Does he have a history of alcohol or substance abuse?
He does have a history of that.
What history is that?
Objection calls for narrative. Also, there's the potential that it predates the most recent custodial order, which would be in January of
Do you want me to read?
9/11/2021.
Okay, so it's sustained, so just narrow it down, question.
All right. Have you had any issues since the date he was intoxicated at the airport with being intoxicated at the exchanges?
Yes, I have.
And when was that? When did you have another instance?
Just this past Saturday.
And what happened this past Saturday?
This past Saturday, I was there to pick up. I asked he can meet me at the passenger pickup, so I wouldn't have to go into the airport, park, and things of that sort. So therefore, when I was approaching, because we're at the passenger pickup, we're at the airport Terminal 1, so it's like a lot of people, a lot of traffic. Having a hard time transitioning, so I was able to, meet her, trying to, I guess, calm her down to help her transition well, and I smelled alcohol on his breath.
And did you do anything about it that time?
I did not call the police that time because my car was running. I was in shock, and I was more concerned about having a hard time transitioning.
Okay. Did you have issues with your video visits after you relocated?
Yes.
What issues did you have?
I've had multiple issues with him allowing me to video call my daughter. One issue would be that this court ordered that the calls were to be at 4:30 and sometimes 5 if mom had to work late. So if I didn't make the call exactly at 4:30, even though I notified dad, he didn't allow the call to go through. And then it was another time he booked his flight back to Las Vegas during my video call and never offered any makeup time for that call that he took from me. So we've had issues with the calls not happening due to different issues.
I know we talked a little bit last time about the calls being recorded. What was
Yes.
the issue with that?
He would tell me on the app how he records our phone calls and how he listens in on the calls, and that if I had brought up an issue to him on the app, he would say that, well, I'm gonna go review the call, and after he says he reviewed the call, he would say that I'm lying, and after reviewing the call, what I said isn't true.
All right. Did you continue to have a difficulty getting information about medical care in Texas?
Objection,
It's,
Yes, so
So it's sustained, so you have to re-ask
Okay.
and rephrase.
have you had any, do you know if being a doctor in a medical provider in Texas?
yes,
Have there been any problems with the
medical,
issues?
yes.
What problems have you had?
The same problems that I've been had when he was here in Texas. He doesn't notify me of the appointment. He doesn't include me in the medical appointment. One time he told me the day of the appointment that he was going to the appointment. Then when I asked him during her dentist appointment if he could call me so I can kind of maybe attend the appointment virtually or some sort, he told me no. Then I asked him if he can send over any intake paperwork, and he told me that I can get it for myself by calling the doctor's office.
What did he tell you the judge would think of his issue at the airport having been drinking?
He told me the judge doesn't care about my whining, if what I can remember.
And is that in the app messages?
Yes.
Do you remember asking to exercise your compensatory time?
I do remember that, yes.
And what was his initial response?
I asked him, can I use it? And he, didn't give me he basically told me no. And that if I was to pay for the flight, then maybe he would agree, I guess.
Were there other issues with your calls with your daughter being interrupted
Yeah, yes.
or shortened? Okay, and what were those issues?
For one, the previous order stated that there was no time limit on the calls, but decided that he was going to do 40-minute calls, so he was going to put a time limit on them. So that kind of interfered because the calls were basically just shut off in the middle of our conversation. Other issues we would have with his wife. She would try to interfere with the calls by bribing with activities or snacks or something like that. If she was to end the call early, I would try to address it on the app in writing and say, hey, this is what's going on. And then he would tell me, I reviewed the video and what you're saying is a lie.
After the judge was there an order for the videos to not be recorded before he told you he was recording?
So during the relocation hearing, when the temporary relocation hearing, it was an order that we were not to record their phone calls.
And were the communications where he was recording before or after that hearing?
After.
Let's talk about so you had concerns about how your daughter is doing in Texas?
Yes, I've had concerns about how she's doing in Texas, and I've tried to bring them up.
What kind of concerns?
I've had concerns about the schooling. There have been several incidents at the school where she's been hit or pushed or maybe touched in an inappropriate place at the school.
How have you found out about these incidents?
Well, some incidents told me on the call
How else?
through the teacher.
And how many conversations have you had with the school about incidents?
I'm gonna object to the hearsay.
I'm not asking her what the conversation said, I said, how many have you had?
So it's overruled.
Okay, I've had,
Just be careful not to tell us what someone else is saying,
okay,
unless it's in the opposing party, but you can tell us like when you have those conversations.
okay. I've had about 7 conversations with the school regarding hitting, pushing, touching inappropriately, things like that.
Okay, what did you do, did you communicate with Dad after you heard about these things?
Yeah, I would text Dad on the app and I would communicate, hey, this is what's, being said. I would take screenshots of like emails that I received from the school. I would send them over via chat, and I kind of felt Dad would just kind of like brush off my concerns that it wasn't really a big deal.
Okay, and have you had any other concerns about her medical care since she's been in Texas?
Yes, I have.
What
I've had concerns. So the vaccine issue, I know we talked about that, but I was receiving emails from the school that going to be unenrolled or kicked out, I don't know, because she was not up to date with her vaccine shots. So when I addressed it with Dad via app, he told me that in Texas, the Texas doctor now had her on an alternate vaccine schedule and that she will receive all of her shots months from now, and that she was not going to be unenrolled from school. And he's already talked to the nurse, and this is the conversation we had via app close.
And were you advised of these doctor's appointments he was referring to?
I was advised the day of the appointment is when he advised me of any medical appointments or less than 24 hours.
What are you concerned about? Well, do you believe that Dad's motives for relocating were related to his job?
No,
Why not?
because from my understanding, what he would tell me on the app that, he was going to be making this large amount of money and that he was going to be able to, give a comfy life, and he was going to be able to enroll her in activities and just provide a better lifestyle for her. And from what I can see now, I mean, that's not true. I mean, I don't even know if he's even, what he's even making now.
Wasn't he ordered to file a financial disclosure form before today?
Yes,
Did he?
no,
Let's talk about the school. So, if your daughter was to stay in Las Vegas, do you have a proposal for school?
yes.
What is that proposal?
I had a proposal for Legacy Traditional Schools and Pinecrest.
And why Legacy?
Well, Legacy is a school that I've worked at for the past 5 years.
What do you do for Legacy? School?
I'm a school social worker there.
Okay. And is there any advantage to your daughter going to school where you work?
So I will receive free aftercare, and I receive like free like latchkey, like before school and after school.
Mm-hmm. And have you compared the Legacy school to the school in her town and area in Texas?
Yes, I have. It seems like they're pretty much the same, like in rating and things of that sort.
Okay, and what's the other proposed school that you had in mind?
It was Pinecrest.
Why Pinecrest?
Pinecrest scored a little higher than both schools, and because I worked in education, I hear really good things about Pinecrest.
Okay. What about the convenience of the location compared to where you are?
Yeah, the location was about 10 minutes from my house. The same amount of like location that was from my job, things like that. But I guess the benefit of her going to Legacy would be that I would be there and I would be able to get the aftercare and the before care and things of that sort.
Okay. Have you, do you know of any actual advantage that your daughter would have by permanently relocating to Texas?
From what I've seen, there's no advantage that she's gonna have by relocating to Texas.
I'm gonna pass the witness.
Just want to have questions?
Many. You know what, I think I'm gonna go backwards.
And if you need to take a break, just let me know, okay?
Isn't it true that Pinecrest is a private school?
No,
Isn't it true that you never suggested Legacy as a school when the child was residing in Las Vegas?
I can't recall.
Have you ever been to Texas?
I've never been to Texas.
Have you even bothered to visit where the child is living in Texas?
Objection argumentative.
Sustained.
The court ordered that both parties file financial disclosure form. When did you file yours?
Before trial,
If I told you that it was filed today, would that surprise you?
that was just because nothing changed, so. We did-
That wasn't my question, was would it surprise you? I mean, you were ordered to file one too, but you didn't file yours until today also, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it true that physicians, the doctor's offices don't allow FaceTime calls based upon HIPAA concerns?
I did not know that.
Speculation.
Sustained.
Isn't it true that you became very bitter after the judge granted, at least temporarily, this motion?
Objection vague, Lux Foundation,
Well, it's also argumentative.
argumentative.
So, Ms. Moore, I mean, I appreciate you being a zealous advocate, but
We
maybe
could
try
look
to-
at some
try to
up-close.
tone it down a bit.
Yeah, we could look at some up-close messages then, let's do that.
Should I change the binders to your guys' binders?
Yes.
Would you mind if we do about a 5-minute break? I left my phone in my vehicle and it's probably gonna explode if I don't get it.
Oh, yeah, sure, we can take a break.
Thank you.
We'll just walk away.
My apologies.
You can step down if you continue to.
Okay.
And just remind you you're still under oath.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Let's turn to, in our book, let's turn to page stamp 623.
What exhibit?
It is exhibit. You. And I would move to admit, if these are up-close messages, Your Honor, I would move to admit
I mean,
those.
Any objection, counsel? As she's talking about.
No, and I
exhibit U.
thought they were, from, is there any way the clerk could just remind us which ones have been admitted so I can mark them off? I thought that one was admitted last time.
I don't think so.
The only ones we have is for plaintiff 1, 7. Just 1 and 7.
Okay. No objection to you.
Okay. So it's admitted.
Okay, let's turn to page 623.
6-3.
Correct.
Sorry, I have to.
No, yeah, no, take your time, it's heavy, but here it is.
So these are all over 900.
Oh, here's the second binder.
Are we still in exhibit U? Because there's no 600 base set numbers in U.
Yeah, we are in. J.
Binder 2.
There are 2 binders.
What's binder 2?
But
Yeah,
not exhibit U, exhibit J?
J.
You is not admitted.
It would be exhibit, J, okay, exhibit J.
Okay, so we're not admitting you, but you're seeking to admit exhibit J?
I would like you also, they're also up close, I don't know why they're divided.
I already agreed to admit exhibit J, but 623 is not in exhibit J either.
I have, J,
It starts at 672.
695.
63.
She said 623.
Okay. Did I use a tab? Tab file?
But for the record, there's no objection to J either, because they're app close messages.
Okay, J is 525 to 892, so it is exhibit J.
Then it must start in the other book?
In binder 2, yes.
No, I'm in binder 2. It's not in binder 2.
It's in binder 1. This
Binder
is-
1?
I
Starts in
see-
binder
I
1?
see 623, the bait stamp.
Okay, they must span
This is-
between
this says
two binders.
binder 1.
Okay, so it sounds like exhibit J is admitted too, right?
Okay.
Okay.
J and what,
Okay, it would be in binder 1 for me. Yeah.
okay.
To July.
Okay, got it. Okay, let me know when you're at 6-2.
I'm at 623.
This is an exchange, this is regarding an exchange that took place in February of this year, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And at the, about 2/16/2024 at 6:38 a.m., do you see where is asking you, could we please go parent, we want you to be friends, could we please get along?
I see that on February 16, 2024.
And then a couple sentences down, he says, I wished we could just work together. We could work together, correct?
Yes, I see that on here.
Okay. Okay, and then the next page where, this is in February of this year, right? The next page where he says, he asks, Do you have the extra paperwork? I mean, I have 2 documents now. What was he referencing, do you know?
I can't remember exactly what it was. I can guess if you want me to do that.
No, I know, no. Nobody wants you to guess. Okay, all right. And so, it seems like you were both getting along, at least at that time, correct?
On the 16th of February?
Of this year, correct?
Yeah, he was telling me how much he loved me and how he wanted a family, and I guess.
And he has a family with his wife and his other children, correct?
Yeah, he's married, yes.
Okay. All right, and then if you'll turn to page 644. Let me know when you get there.
I'm here.
Okay. All right, and you were complaining about the time that the minor child came to Las Vegas, correct?
On which day?
From return to Las Vegas from Texas for your visitation. You weren't happy about the time.
About the red-eye flights coming in?
Right,
Correct.
correct? Okay.
I was not happy.
Did you ever, alone was paying for that flight, correct?
That's what the court order said.
Okay. Isn't it true that he asked you, told you that that was an inexpensive flight, correct?
I don't know if he told me it was an expensive flight or if that's the date that he just booked. If you can refresh my memory.
Okay, well, let's turn to page 644 at the very top. Okay. Well, I should go back because it starts. I don't want to break it up.
Okay.
If you look on page 643, and there's a bunch
I
of-
see where it says the reasonable price ticket. I see.
Yeah, but prior to that said, this meant for us to communicate with each other and not intended to be your journal. Please refrain from trying to document your perceptions to a third party within it. You have counsel for such matters. And then he goes on.
Objection, that's not a question.
Well, I'm going to ask her, I'm laying some foundation here. So in that didn't say he offered to pay for the flights, but the court also saw a reason for being sensible with the flight costs, correct? At least in his mind.
I'm sorry, is the question, what's the question?
Do you recall in the motion for relocation, he advised the court, hey, I'm gonna pay for the transportation, and that in his mind, he said that the judge also saw a reason for being sensible with the flight costs. Remember we talked about, during that hearing, we talked about Spirit and Frontier and some low-cost airlines.
But that wasn't discussed at the initial temporary relocation hearing.
Okay.
Do you want me to
So
explain?
didn't he at that time, he said that the time was limited to obtaining tickets for the child's return flight, right?
Yes,
He was on a budget, he had just started that new employment, right?
correct.
And he was going to have to pay an extreme amount of money for other flights that you would deem to be convenient, right? In other words, he was on a budget, didn't tell you.
Judge,
look,
let me
I'm
object.
on a budget.
There's a kind of narrative on her end, she's kind of testifying here.
So, Ms. Marr, is there a point you're trying to make?
Sure.
If so, can you get to it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm a little worried, sorry. So didn't tell you, hey, you might not like the flight, but I'm on a budget, at least for right now. This is what I can afford, right? He had just started working in
So,
Texas,
Ms. Marr,
didn't he?
is there a question in there?
Yes.
Wait, what's the question?
Okay, didn't he tell you he was on a budget at that time?
I don't know if those are the exact words that he was on a budget. I know he's,
Well, let me read it.
I do have a budget and I'm not going to pay an extreme amount. I do see that.
Okay. All right. And your child slept the majority of that flight, correct?
Objection calls for speculation.
She was what?
She was with the child.
Okay. Okay. All right, but he did pay for the transportation, correct?
He did pay for that flight, yes.
Have you paid for any flights?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So you stated that you have concerns regarding the school in Texas. You haven't ever been to Texas though, right? I think that's what you
Judge asked and
testified.
answered.
Well, it was asked by you, I guess, this morning.
You haven't been down to her school to visit?
Objection asked and answered.
Okay, so you just want to confirm that she hasn't been to Texas and she hasn't been to her daughter's school?
Correct.
Yes, so you haven't been to Texas, right? And you haven't been to your daughter's school, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, now you testified for your counsel that records the calls and that's in the app close. Can you point to me, presumably it's in your book, can you point to me where it said that he records the calls?
Do you want me to change out the books to look for it?
Sure.
It was on the record last time we were here.
That's
So-
not what you testified.
So, Ms. Marr, this is day 2, and I'm not gonna give you guys a third day, so I don't know what the plan of action here is, but how are we ever going to get done? We're moving so slowly that there's no foreseeable end to this hearing.
I understand, Your Honor. However, I have just started
I
my
understand you have just started,
cross-examination.
but if you're gonna ask her to look through a book that has, I don't know how many pages are on that book, to try to find a message, it could possibly take her an hour to look through that book.
Well, she was confident in her testimony, so.
So I'm
I
not
just-
gonna,
you know-
I'm not going to have her look through the book.
Okay.
He already
Fair enough.
admitted at the
The-
last hearing that he records the phone
No,
calls.
he doesn't.
He said he has a
That's
ring
not
camera
true.
that records
He has a
calls.
Ring camera. He didn't say he was recording the calls. There's a distinction.
He
No,
did
he's
say
talking about
that.
it being set up indoors, Judge.
He did say that.
For sure.
Okay, so
It's a
that's,
security system. The issue I have, Your Honor, is they've taken hours and hours and hours. I've just started my cross,
Mhm.
haven't even put my client
So
on.
what you're telling me is you're gonna plan to go into a third day?
It appears so. I mean, I'm not gonna cut my client short on, why do I have to rush?
Well, I think, Your Honor, the point was asking my client to look through 100 pages of a binder is not time
Yeah, so I mean,
effective.
just, what I'm saying is be mindful of the time, right? Because obviously this isn't the only case that's set before this department, and we just don't have unlimited time to get through these cases. So if they ever wanna have a resolution to this, which I would hope they do, because that's in the best interest of the child, to get to a resolution, we need to be mindful of how we're using our time, and asking her to go through a binder that has, I don't know, 1,000 or so pages, just probably isn't a good use of our time,
Okay.
okay?
I feel now as if I'm being rushed
Okay.
when they,
Okay, Ms. Marr, if you don't
Okay.
get done today, we're gonna give you the luxury of having yet another day, but let's not ask someone to look through a 1,000-page binder to go on a mining expedition.
okay. Fair enough. Okay. These video calls, isn't it true that you touched the child during the video calls?
That's not true.
You said this past Saturday that there was an alleged issue regarding alcohol use again by, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, isn't it true that at any given time, you were at least 10 feet away from at that exchange?
I was very close to him, yes.
At least 10 feet away, correct?
I don't know if it was 10 feet, 8 feet, 7 feet. I was very close to him.
Okay. And you testified that there were a lot of people there, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As a matter of fact, you said there was lots of traffic at the airport, correct?
Yes, because I was we're going through the passenger pickup where people come off the airplane, and you can't really park there Because the people, they tell you to keep going, so it was a lot of traffic, and it was a Saturday night.
Okay, so lots of people. Isn't it true that you were actually stoned when you picked up the child during that exchange
Objection,
that
Judge,
night?
foundation.
Argumentative and Lots Foundation.
So that's sustained, so you do need to lay some foundation for that question.
Did you take any or ingest any substances prior to that pickup?
No, ma'am.
Okay. You smoked marijuana?
I have before,
When's the last time you smoked?
maybe like 5 months ago, 6 months ago.
So is it your testimony that you were not under the influence of marijuana during that child exchange?
I've never been under the influence of marijuana or alcohol during any exchanges.
Let me kind of switch gears here. During your testimony, you advised or alleged that doesn't inform you of things regarding the child, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Such as doctor appointments, and then just today you testified that enrolled the child in a school without your permission, correct?
That he enrolled her without my permission. Did I say that today?
Correct.
Okay,
Objection misstates the testimony.
I don't think I said that today.
Is it your
So
testimony
that's
that,
sustained, so
is it your testimony that has enrolled the child in school without your knowledge or permission?
This court ordered or allowed to enroll her in school in Texas, so it wasn't.
And I'm not talking about Texas, I'm talking about here in Las Vegas. You testified that he had gone on and picked out a couple schools without your consent, correct?
That he had submitted lotteries and information like that without talking to me. I recall something of that sort.
Okay, but a lottery is not enrolling a child in school, correct?
I don't think so.
Okay. A lottery,
It's to reserve their spot, I believe.
okay, and isn't it true that sought to secure options in at least 2 schools for the child? Via a lottery?
I mean, if that's what you're saying, I guess.
Okay, I don't want you to guess. I don't want you to guess. But he didn't enroll the child in the school without your consent, correct?
Right, because she was not.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a yes or no? Okay. All right, isn't it true that you, however, enrolled the child in La Petite Child Care Center here in Las Vegas without his knowledge?
Correct.
Okay. And when you found out about it, and he asked you, what was your response?
I told him, that I forgot to tell him, and that if he needed any information, that I was willing to give it to him.
Okay. Okay. And how quickly did you get that information to him?
I asked him on the app, what did he need, and what paperwork was he looking for. I never received any response from him via app.
Okay. And isn't it true that you didn't even have on the paperwork when you enrolled the child in the care center?
It was a simple oversight. I came to the daycare an hour before they were closing. I scribbled whatever I could on the paperwork just so I can get her in.
Okay. Isn't it true that you told your mother had been watching the child though?
Objection relevance?
Credibility.
overruled.
It's true that I told him that my mom was flying down to watch.
Okay. Who is watching the child today?
My Aunt Kim.
Did you provide with that information?
I did not tell him today that it was exactly my Aunt Kim who was watching for today.
Okay. Okay. Have you ever done that before?
What?
Objection relevance?
not advised.
So, Ms. Marr?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the relevance of this is.
Okay, I'll move on. Are there any questions? So you were also completing that, didn't move right away from Las Vegas today, correct?
Complaining, I was just testifying.
Okay, all right. Do you know if it was going back and forth to relocate his possessions or his furniture to Texas?
I know late at night, I received a phone call from of him telling me that he was on the road and that he was traveling to Texas.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to refresh your memory. Do you remember a court order, I believe it was Judge Bailey, that was entered before this court on January the 14th, 2022? Do you remember that order? And if
Objection
not, I
vague.
understand.
And that's how you can.
Okay.
I don't,
So that's sustained.
Okay. Well, I'd like the court to take judicial notice of an order that was entered on January 14th, 2022.
For what purposes?
Objection relevant?
It's very relevant. It's relevant because in that order, I'm making off of proof, Judge Bailey reminded the parties, both parties, to follow the orders of the court. Future violations will result in the court considering sanctions based upon the high conflict case.
I'm sorry, Ms. Marr, I'm still unclear. Why is this relevant?
It's relevant because when she being the plaintiff, is asking for accommodations and to stray from those orders, it was so problematic in the past, Your Honor, that an order had to be entered saying strictly adhere to the orders.
Ms. Marr, I'm sorry, I just don't find that relevant. I don't find it relevant what another judicial officer did 2 years ago in this case. I'm not gonna go backwards in time and look at everything that someone else did. We can only move forward. I just don't find it relevant. I will not take judicial notice of it.
Okay. All right, do you recall an order, you actually requested a custody evaluator, do you recall that?
I recall hearing that the judge ordered a custody evaluator, yes.
I mean, that was this judge, right?
I don't recall if it was this judge or the previous judge who ordered.
Rochelle?
Yes, Rochelle.
Okay, all right. But that was something that you had requested, correct?
I don't know if I requested or we both requested it.
Okay. And do you know if you ever signed the contract for Dr. Berquist?
Dr. Berquist. Maybe he did, I'm not sure.
Oh, did you?
I did not sign a contract.
Do you know if you ever paid Dr. Berquist?
No money, Dr. Berquist never received any money.
So you never paid Dr. Berquist either?
No, ma'am.
Never signed a contract? Okay. Why not?
Well, there was many reasons. I don't know if you want me to go into all those reasons. My counsel, they were in constant communication with Dr. Berquist. I did not have $14,000 to pay solely on my own. When I was, and then when we did get we were ordered for a custody evaluation, then Dad filed this motion to relocate, which made things more messier, and I had to now come up with funds, to fight that, I guess, and it was, my attorneys were in communication with Dr. Berquist, and regarding those issues, I guess I'll say.
Okay. So, despite the fact that you asked for a custody evaluator, you failed to essentially follow up.
Objection argumentative. And misstates the testimony.
So, Ms. Marr, again, this is relevant because why exactly?
It's a pattern. It's a pattern with her. And it has been.
A pattern of what?
A pattern of making allegations, false allegations, manipulating the judicial process. She had asked for a custody evaluator. My client jumped through the hoops, met with Dr. Berquist, and then it was for a custody evaluation. And if it was important enough to her to ask for it, why didn't she follow through with it?
She answered the question, it was 14,000, she didn't have the money.
Okay, so we're not gonna argue between each other or talk to each other like that, but, okay, I guess, but just move
Okay.
on.
All right. And isn't it true that you have child support arrears sitting here today?
Yes, and that issue is already been resolved, and I'm actually paying on top of like arrears with child support office right now.
Okay. Do you know how much you owe in arrears?
Objection relevance to this proceeding.
I'm sorry, can you ask
Do you know how
me?
much you owe in arrears?
Maybe $10,000.
Okay. Now, previously you testified that you had tried to drop the child off to, so that you could take a cruise with a family member to the Bahamas, I believe. Do you recall that testimony?
That was like, what, 2-3 years ago?
Okay. But that was you testified, your counsel asked you?
Yeah,
And
I'm
you
just saying, was that
testified?
2-3 years ago? Can you give me a date?
Okay, well, let's look at your base stamp number 96.
Okay.
Do you remember, you testifying that wasn't there when you tried to return the child? Do you recall that testimony?
That he wasn't at the police station in Henderson?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. And then you further testified that you, because he wasn't there, you ultimately had to purchase a ticket to take the child with you to Florida for that cruise. Do you remember that?
Well, I testified that I attempted to call him multiple times. I testified that I had police intervene and try to call him. I even testified that I
Right.
went to his mother's house to try.
Right, and I know all that, I was here, I heard it.
Okay,
But with that being said, do you remember your testimony that because you couldn't get in contact with him, that you had to buy a ticket to take the child with you
me
to Florida?
Yes,
Do you
ma'am.
remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm gonna remind you, you're under oath. Isn't it true that you purchased that ticket for the child, at least to go to Florida, at least a month before that child exchange?
So are you saying that I purchased the flight before this incident happened? Is that what you're saying?
Correct, isn't that the truth?
That is not the truth.
Okay, you're sure? Because that was a couple years ago.
Just ask the answer.
Ma'am, I've already answered that I was trying to release the child on that day so I can go to my cruise. And I even asked him to pick her up at the airport when I was there. And then I had to buy her a ticket at the counter that day.
Okay. So if we pull up that information from Frontier, it's not going to show that that ticket was purchased a month prior.
If you guys can show me a ticket name on it that it was purchased a month before my departure date. I would like to see it.
Okay, okay, we'll get back to that. All right. You were, that particular exchange, the fact of the matter also is that you showed up late for that exchange, didn't you?
It wasn't that I showed up late. I forgot the times. So it wasn't that I just wanted to show up late. I mixed the times up.
Okay, you mixed the times up. Did the child exchange time change or something, or?
Yes, because that wasn't our normal day to like really exchange. I was only spending a few hours with her or something of that sort until I boarded the plane, from what I can remember.
Okay. And then you've done that before though, haven't you? You've shown up late or forgotten days
Or
or.
mix up.
Objection, Wax Foundation.
Sustained.
Now, you've also testified that you have some sort of support system here in Nevada. Who is your support system here in Nevada?
So I have my Aunt Kim who lives here in Nevada, okay? I have my brother who comes back and forth between Arizona, Vegas, and Michigan, because he's in construction. That is my immediately blood family. And also I have a cousin, she lives here with her daughter.
Okay. So your brother's not here all the time, and then you said you have a cousin who has her
A daughter,
own family, okay,
Mhm.
and then you have an aunt.
and I have an aunt who does live here
Okay, how old is your aunt?
in her late 50s.
Okay. So you testified that you had to take the child with you to Florida. Why didn't you call one of the people in your support system?
I didn't have family that lived here when that situation happened. If that did, I went to Justin's family's house to ask them for help.
Okay. We'll move on. This Christmas, you also testified that you wanted to drop off Christmas gifts to, it was a couple Christmases ago, right? Do you remember your testimony?
That I wanted to drop off gifts or have gifts sent to her.
Right, for the child. It was Christmas time.
Probably so, yeah. I probably had to
Okay.
do something like that.
Why did, isn't it true that wasn't home? He was at a family member's house and therefore your request was denied?
I don't know if he was at a family member's house or
You don't remember telling me that?
that because he's not going to allow me to send gifts because he's at a family member's house.
That
Is
he
that what
wasn't home
said?
for you to drop the gifts off?
I don't recall that.
You don't recall? Okay.
I'm sorry,
Why
I don't
didn't
remember.
you, why didn't you simply give the gifts to a child exchange?
Well, if he would have said that, I would have. I mean, I was trying to communicate with him about gifts or about Christmas, or, I mean, even if he would have said, well, I'm not home, but you can like Amazon them or something of that sort. I think he was basically just telling me no, like he didn't want anything from me to give to my daughter.
Okay. I guess my question is if that was that important, and understandably so, why didn't you simply give him the gifts to ensure that your daughter would get them at the child exchange?
Because he's already denied the first request.
Okay. What first request?
If I can send gifts to.
All right. Now, you've also testified that Dad makes appointments for the child with virtually no notice to you. Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Isn't it true that that's only happened a couple of times?
A couple times, like, is that 2-3 times? Is that a couple?
A couple is 2-3 times, couple or a few times.
No, it happened several times. I mean, it's even happening in Texas right now.
Isn't it true that on one particular occasion, the child had a rash? And that's why the doctor's appointment had to be made very quickly.
I don't recall that.
You don't recall? Okay. Now, the doctors, you're testifying that you don't have privy to your daughter's appointments, medical and dental appointments in Texas. Have you reached out to those medical care providers to ensure that you're notified?
I reached out to them to make sure that I was on the contact log as her mother.
Okay. But have you asked to be notified of any appointments?
No, I didn't ask them that specifically, no.
Okay. Isn't there an app that automatically notifies you when an appointment's made?
No. I don't have an app that notifies. I don't have it. Maybe has an app, but I don't have an app on my phone that notifies me of appointments.
Isn't it true that he provided you with that app and the information so you could download and always be informed of what's going on?
He could have sent a notification on the app about something like that. I can remember.
You don't remember? Okay. Isn't it true that the child's doctor also sent you that information on at least 2 occasions?
I don't remember.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Okay. Why don't you make, at least when the child was living here, why didn't you simply make any appointments for the child and then notify?
Well, I didn't make any appointments for the child because he would not allow me to make appointments for her, and he would tell me in the app that during his custodial time, I am not to schedule any appointments because it's interfering with his timeshare, is what I was told by Dad. And even when I did try to make appointments, he will call the doctor's office and cancel them.
Isn't it true that you've canceled appointments for the child?
I can't remember.
And isn't it true that you have, you've not informed of appointments until last minute?
Objection, Lux Foundation.
Sustained.
Isn't it true that you've told when he has made appointments and they are in advance, that those appointments are going to work?
Objection, Lux Foundation.
So Ms. Marley, during what period of time, when?
In the past 2 years.
In the past 2 years, have I told him that the appointments that he scheduled doesn't work for my job or it doesn't work for me? Probably so, yes. Can I explain?
No. You know, I'm going through these APCOs and isn't it true that you're always asking for accommodations or modifications or additional time with the child?
Objection, Lux Foundation.
Argumentative, Judge.
Sustained.
Now, you also complained about insurance. Isn't it true that what that wasn't his insurance, it was his wife's insurance?
I did not complain. I simply told my attorney what the order stated.
So, wouldn't it be, would you agree with me? He really doesn't have a lot of control over his wife's insurance as a spouse.
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Irrelevant.
You also complained about the Nevada Day in 2022. You made allegations of withholding. Isn't it true that you arrived for the exchange on the wrong day?
Yes, it was true that I arrived on a Friday instead of a Thursday, right? Is that correct?
Right. Well, that was your testimony. You arrived on the wrong day.
Right, but I had sent a message to him prior on the app because I misread the schedule. And so when Dad allegedly said that he arrived on Thursday, he never reached out to me to say, hey Mom, where are you? I'm here at the exchange. He simply wanted to take my timeshare and not allow me to have her for that holiday time.
That's your assumption though, right? He didn't tell you that, right?
No, he didn't tell me that.
Okay. As a matter of fact, you showed up on the wrong day. Why is it his job to tell you what time and what day to do the child exchange?
I feel like
Objection argumentative.
Well, you know, it is obviously cross-examination to some extent. That's the nature of cross-examination, that it needs to be argumentative, obviously. But Ms. Marr, I'm just really not sure what point it is that you're trying to make with your line of questioning.
Well, the line of questioning, Your Honor, is to demonstrate that when it's her failure to have the date for the exchange down, and it's her failure to arrive timely, she projects and makes it somehow it's all its fault. At some point, we have to take responsibility.
Okay, so you're arguing now, but, okay, so I'll give you a little bit of latitude, but again, be mindful of, you know, using the time wisely.
Okay. Okay. And isn't it true that when you failed to show up for a child exchange, that you went ahead and made plans for the child?
Objection calls for speculation.
If you know.
I don't know what plans he made when he did not allow me to take my timeshare. That was for the entire holiday weekend.
Okay. You know, speaking of holidays, you also testified that you were deprived of Christmas vacation because of the exchange at Donna's house. Do you remember that testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Isn't it true that you waited until the day of the exchange to complete the orientation?
I did do the orientation the day of the exchange.
The day of the exchange. And are you aware that it takes time to process? They have procedures down there, apparently, but it takes time to process things like that. So it doesn't just, it's not like a McDonald's drive-through where you.
So Ms. Marr, again, what are you, I mean, you're weaving your arguments into your questions. I mean, if you have a,
Okay.
just ask her a question.
Yeah, so isn't it true that because you waited so long to do the orientation, that Donna's house would not permit the exchange to take place there?
That's false. And as far as you can see in the
No
app,
question pending, move to strike.
So you just have to answer her question and wait for another one.
So you also alleged that they wouldn't reimburse you for an emergency room visit when you took the child to the emergency room. Do you remember that?
yes,
Okay. What was wrong with the child that day?
she was having trouble breathing, she was throwing up, and things of that sort.
If I look at the medical record, is that what's going to be on there?
Objection argumentative. Lux foundation.
I'm sure argumentative, but that's, You can ask her if she knows.
I don't know what the medical record says. I know,
I'm sorry?
I don't know what the medical record says.
Okay, well, it's in the app and we'll get to that.
Okay.
Okay. There was another order actually last year, on April 27th, 2023. And the court ordered that you choose 3 providers and that you would choose one from your choices. Do you remember that?
I do remember.
And you told this judge that unilaterally enrolled the child in therapy, correct? Do you
Yes.
remember that
Yes,
testimony? Isn't it true that you failed to provide that list in a timely manner?
it's not true.
Okay. Well, I'd like the court to take judicial notice of the notice that Mr. filed on the 30th, May 30th, the notice of failure to choose providers. Do you remember that?
I do not remember that.
Does she remember someone filing a notice of, does she remember what was filed into the case? Is that your question?
No, my. Sorry, yeah, okay. So you're saying that you timely provided providers?
I timely provided my counsel
Oh.
with providers.
Okay, so you told your counsel, you didn't tell.
I had counsel, and the counsel, they were going back and forth with the providers.
So I don't wanna know anything that you said to your attorney, or what your attorney said to you, obviously. But you're saying you gave the names to your attorney at the time?
At the time.
Okay.
Why didn't you just tell the providers on the parenting app?
I did eventually tell him that on the parenting app as well.
When did you do that?
Like the exact day.
If you recall.
I don't recall the exact day that I sent them, but I did send them via app close. And even when I sent them, he had already had her enrolled in therapy prior to that for 6 months.
Isn't it true that you would, when you were meeting for the child exchanges at the police station on MLK, that you would drive through the parking lot so that he didn't see you?
That's not true.
Court's indulgence.
Did you, oh, you have your water?
Okay. No. No.
Ms. Marr, do you have any more questions for her or what?
I did.
Okay, let's move on.
Court's indulgence.
I don't have any further questions. I'll get everything in through him.
Any redirect?
Very briefly. The first question you were asked about asking you to co-parent, do you recall that the timing of that being significant?
Yes, because he was asking me if he could relocate to Texas without filing a motion to move.
Did his behavior change?
Yeah, that's where I received, the I love yous, and, he was fine with, my emotions and telling me that he wanted me to maybe relocate with him, and there's gonna be a family with me, him, and he was, just being very nice to me. And so it was very, I wasn't used to that, so I liked, that he was being nice to me.
You were asked whether ever admitted he recorded your calls. Can you turn to page 232 of the Exhibit 1? Well, would it refresh your recollection to read the message?
Yes.
Okay, turn to 232.
232. Is it page 230?
Yeah, it's at the bottom. They're actually, base stamp and the pages are the same number.
232.
And then,
Yes, I have it.
okay, and then review his message starting on 521 and let me know if that refreshes your recollection.
Oh, I see it.
Okay, and what is he saying to you?
So he says, thank you for sharing your opinion. However, yet again, your comments do not line up with the facts. I have reviewed the video evidence and did not interfere whatsoever. Rather, she was helping upon request.
Okay, when references watching a video of your phone calls, is that what you were referring to when he records you?
Yes, ma'am.
You testified that you recently were told doctor's appointments on the same day
Yes.
and after he moved to Texas?
After he moved to Texas, he would tell me, a few hours before the appointment, that day, that I wasn't able to attend.
All right, turn to 229, a few pages back. And would it refresh your recollection to review messages where he has done this?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, go ahead and review that page.
I reviewed it.
Okay, and what does he do then?
He tells me that please note that Gigi has an appointment set with her new pediatrician at 3:40 in Austin.
All right, and was there times where he told you the same day?
Yes.
And do you recall how long before the appointment he gave you notice?
Maybe like a couple hours, maybe like 3-4 hours.
You said you wanted to explain, you were asked if in the past 2 years his schedule appointments and they haven't worked for your schedule. You asked to explain and you weren't given the opportunity. What were you going to say?
I was going to explain, I would tell him that the appointments did not work because he will just, I have a job that I'm to report Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 4, and I have a very important job at the school, and if I couldn't just get time off that way, because it was a job that I had there, so it just caused a lot of issues when I would constantly have to go to my employer and request last minute, or, say, hey, these are the dates, can I take off, because it would not accommodate my work schedule.
Right, but is the issue that you needed to take time off during the week, or is the issue?
Objection, pleading.
Why is it an issue Why is it an issue for your employer specifically? What is the issue?
The issue is that I'm notifying them last minute and that,
Okay, if you had been given more notice, would it be an issue?
not if I given more notice, it wouldn't have been an issue.
Okay, because I believe that the question was that you have been given notice and yet it was an issue. Is that true?
Can you rephrase the question? I don't understand.
Did you ever have an issue with attending an appointment when you were given ample notice?
Yes.
Okay, and what was the issue then?
That he wouldn't like co-parent with me about like the time frames or the dates that, you know, he selected. He's solely and alone, you know, scheduled these appointments without any consideration for me or
How was it inconsiderate to you?
because he never asked like if these dates worked for my schedule.
Okay, so you were dictated the schedule, not asked to,
So he would just tell me what was gonna happen. I thought since we had joint legal custody that we were to discuss these things before we scheduled the appointment. So I just felt like he never discussed them with me. I don't even know what the appointment was about. He just basically told me, this is what's going on.
what has his response been when you've asked him to give you notice of appointment?
Sometimes he'll say noted. And that sometimes he'd tell me, you know, it's during his timeshare and, you know, I guess he can schedule appointments.
Just to clarify on the 3 providers you were ordered to provide, the 3 options, were the attorneys, yours and his attorneys, discussing the options in a timely manner, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, yes.
Nothing further, Sabrina.
So you said you're a social worker out of school, just so I can kind of figure this out.
The
How
school
long,
social worker?
how long have you been working in that position then?
At that school or just through the district?
Just the district?
8 years?
8 years, okay. So during this time when you were trying to get time off to go to various appointments, you've always been in kind of that same position? The 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. schedule?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Can I ask one question about that? If you are given, well, how much notice do you need to be able to have it be not be a problem?
Maybe a couple weeks.
And okay, nothing further.
Okay, you can step down now. Thank you. And then did you have more witnesses that you wanted to call then?
No.
No? And then who are you calling then for yours?
I'm gonna call. However, I think he has to use the restroom.
Okay, so we can